So thank you very much for inviting me to speak here today, especially because I wrote an article a few years ago in which I said that the push for open access, is making science less inclusive. So I would think that maybe you wouldn't want me here. But I'll start with the disclaimer that despite the title of this article, I am very much in favor of open access. I don't think it's even a discussion that we should be able to openly read without paywalls the finding of our research. What I was saying here and what I want to show you is that the pathway we have adopted for open access, at least initially, is making science less inclusive. And this comes from the perspective that is very personal of mine as a biochemist in the University of São Paulo. So my story with open access is that in 2017, I was working with mitochondria and really not thinking much of open access at all, except, oh, that's a nice idea. And then we published what was a major finding for our lab in a Cell Press journal, which was open access only. So soon after celebrating this marvelous finding and the publication of our paper, I got billed in $5,000 for article publishing costs for our article to be published. I tried to negotiate with the journal and asked for a discount, told them I'm Brazilian. They did not give me a discount, and they also wouldn't publish our article while we didn't pay the $5,000. They basically held it hostage. And then I started thinking about open access and the problems behind the very high APCs. Now, $5,000 was a lot of money for us in 2017, but today it's not an unheard of price to pay for article publishing charges in many of these highly visible journals that researchers in my area want to publish in. In fact, lots of Cell Press journals now charge almost $10,000, while there are more than 30 Nature-branded journals that charge more than $11,000 to put a PDF online of a paper that was funded with public money and written by researchers. So article publishing charges have gone completely berserk over the world. And if that sounds like a lot to a European researcher, to a Brazilian researcher, it's just unbelievable. And I don't think I can really make a European researcher feel the economic divide between the world, the differences between purchasing power. But I decided to try to do this by telling you how much a typical student earns per month in Brazil because of these economic differences. So I work in a country in which the federal fellowships for a PhD candidate are less than 600 euros a month. The federal fellowships for a postdoc are less than 1,000 euros a month. So when you tell me to pay $5,000 or $11,000 to publish a paper, the choice I'm making is not paying a trainee for months or even years, because all of this money, of course, comes from the same pool. And this is absolutely unacceptable for me, and I'm never going to do it again. So since 2017, my option as a researcher has been either to publish in subscription journals, but make my papers open access by preprinting, and I'll talk about that a little bit more at the end, or to look for open access journals that are much, much cheaper than that. But that has been very difficult. It's been increasingly difficult. For one, because APC charges have been going up so much, way above inflation, and also because many journals are no longer have the option of subscription and not paying open access. Many journals are converting to open access only. And much of that comes from movements all around the world, including PlanS, which I think was a pioneer in this sense, to make open access happen more quickly. Now, while I completely appreciate the complete change of climate that we've had within Coalition S, and I really like what I've heard today, and we've felt for the last few months that things have changed a lot, I think it's impossible to deny that in the early years of PlanS, which started in 2018, there was a lot of pressure for people to publish open access at the journal site, and also a lot of pressure for journals to convert to open access only, without taking care of some other tenements that were in the original plans of PlanS, such as controlling prices within these very, very lucrative commercial editorial companies that we really depend upon a lot in many of the research areas. So I think it's really time, and I really like this meeting because this makes me have hope for this, that we control all these processes. processes. So what are my options as a researcher in Brazil right now to publish my work? So I don't think I have to introduce the fact that I am Brazilian, and we have Cielo, which is a groundbreaking organization, more than 25 years publishing open access at very low cost or even at no cost in Brazil. I could publish my papers in Cielo journals. The problem is that Cielo is enormously important for problems that are local. My research, however, I work with energy metabolism, is worldwide. That means that if I publish my work in a Cielo journal, first of all, I won't have the full benefits of peer review, because quite honestly, I very seriously doubt that a researcher in the global north is going to accept to peer review something that was submitted to a journal that says Brazilian Journal of something. And that's just a reality. It's very unfortunate, but it is the reality. And the second thing is that once this article is published, it probably won't be read by my peers in the global north. And that, again, is another reality that requires changes of research assessment and all that we discussed yesterday. So that's really not an option for persons like myself who do research that is very worldwide. So the other option would be Diamond Open Access journals. And I very, very strongly believe in it. That's why I'm in this session. And I not only believe in it, but I work towards this end. So we got together a group of researchers in my field and founded by ourselves, Bioenergetics Communications, which is a Diamond Open Access journal. I'm one of the 4 academic editors for this journal, as this journal is based with a head editor for it in Austria. And we started it in 2020 ourselves with a very, very large review article that has hundreds of authors from all around the world. It's basically a mitochondrial encyclopedia, kind of to jumpstart this journal. So we started with a bang. That was in 2020. 3 years later, we're still not indexed because we don't have enough submissions a year to be indexed. But we don't have enough submissions a year to be indexed because we aren't indexed, and therefore people are not going to submit papers to our Diamond Open Access journal. So I really like to hear that we are planning consortia based in Europe to help these initiatives and to really get us out of this rut which we can't get out of. Because we need not only to be indexed, but we need to be recognized as a journal that is worth publishing in by research funding agencies. And here I have to make a parenthesis because I see people talking about DORA. I totally support DORA, and this is something that I want to see happen. But on the other hand, my colleagues who publish and work in Europe are telling me all the time that for their research agencies, publishing in journals with an impact factor lower than 10 means nothing. And the contrast between these two conversations and how ridiculous the idea that publishing in a journal with an impact factor lower than 10 means nothing is really something that worries me, but this seems to be the reality that they live in. So we really have to change the research evaluation culture. So another solution for the immediate problem that we have with publishing and not having options to publish in that are both free to pay and free to publish and that are recognized would be a good discount and waiver system for the journals that charge APCs. And in fact, most editorial companies do have discounts and waivers based on country of origin. And I painted the map here with 2 different systems that are adopted by different editorial companies, in which the countries painted the darker orange will receive full waivers. Researchers from these countries will receive full waivers to publish, while researchers from the countries in yellow will receive a discount that's typically of 50%. The problem is that these discount and waiver policies do not include most large Latin American countries. They don't include Brazil, they don't include Argentina, they don't include Mexico, they don't include Chile, etc. We are expected to pay full price. And the editorial companies will actually write back to me when I ask for a discount and say, you are not in the countries that merit discount. Brazil is too rich to qualify for discounts, but we're too poor to pay for article publishing charges. So we're kind of caught in the rut. If you quantify how many authors originate from countries that have discounts or waivers, you actually see at the bottom here that the percentage of authors that come from these countries is very, very low. So the discounts and waiver systems are very, very limited right now, and that's another problem. Another solution is contracts between institutions and these editorial companies, in which the institutions pay the editorial companies, and we gain the right to publish open access in these journals without having to pay as researchers ourselves. And many different countries are doing these kind of contracts right now. I think these contracts are very interesting in the sense that they solve two problems. First is the enormous conflict of interest that there is in which an author himself is paying to publish his own work. Second, you can direct authors to better journals in this way. By selecting journals that have good editorial processes, you can avoid that authors choose journals with poor editorial processes because their APCs are already accounted for in these kind of contracts. Now, we have an advantage in Brazil, which is that our contracts for subscriptions have been negotiated over 30 years already by Capes Periódicos at a national level. So this means we have more leverage in terms of getting better prices for these things. But the truth is that the Global South typically overpays for subscriptions, and this has been well proven. So I have no reason to believe that the Global South won't overpay for subscribe to open type of contracts also. And this is a reality because we are smaller and we have less bargaining power. So this is a very difficult reality for us, and I don't really think that this is going to be the best solution over time to solve all our problems with open access. So these are the problems. I don't want to end with downers, so I'm going to bring to you what I see as a really good solution so we can gain free and immediate open access and then work on the problems with research assessment and also on taking over the editorial system so we can work it better. And that is through Plan U. So I did not propose Plan U. These authors proposed Plan U led by Richard Server, but I am a very, very strong supporter of Plan U. Plan U proposes to get free and immediate open access by mandating preprinting and using preprints as a source of open access. So this plan is based on the fact that preprint servers, public preprint servers, have appeared in most fields of knowledge today, and also that most journals have understood, in fact in my field all journals have understood, that preprints can be deposited before you send a paper to a journal. Now, Plan U is often confused by a plan to only preprint. The authors do not propose that because they understand that nowadays most preprints are not reviewed, and we do need peer review. I think it's a really important process. What they're proposing is that you use preprints as a form to achieve open access. So the idea is that authors would prepare their papers and either submit them first to a preprint server or submit them in parallel to a preprint server and a classical journal like we already have them today. And then they would improve their papers over time and keep them updated both in the preprint server and in the journal. And they would improve their papers with peer review and with comments from colleagues who read the preprint. Then once the paper is published in a journal, if it's behind a paywall, either by using a paywall or by doing a very fast search in preprint servers, you could find the updated full text of this journal in the form of the preprint. So you could gain complete and immediate open access. Now, there is this slight disadvantage to open access at the journal that you have to search for the preprint to gain open access. But that's the only disadvantage I see with this system. And then the rest to me are all advantages. First of all, it's free. It's immediate, it's equitable, it's inclusive, anybody in the world can use it. And most of all, it uses a structure we already have at hand. We don't have to create anything else. We already have the servers, we already have the journals. That means that literally today we could decree that preprinting is mandatory as a form of open access and have open access of all our papers. And that would give us time and also give us leverage because it breaks this dependency on these commercial editorial companies that we need right now because we don't have other options that are completely equitable. So we could, with time, fix both research assessment and also establish researcher-based platforms that are recognized as good platforms to publish our work. So I really support Plan U, and I want to kind of tickle the audience here on thinking of Plan U as an immediate and free solution to open access right now. Thank you.